Hello, and thank you for joining the Evaluating Your Efforts webinar brought to you by the State and Community Intimate Partner Violence and Perinatal Depression Resource Development Project. My name is Keisha Highsmith, from the Health Resources and Services Administration's Maternal and Child Health Bureau. Today's webinar is one of a series of webinars that HRSA MCHB and Social Solutions International, Inc. have hosted to discuss select topic areas that are addressed in the newly developed resource toolkit entitled A Comprehensive Community-Based Approach to Addressing Intimate Partner Violence and Perinatal Depression. Next slide. Our guest speakers and moderator for this webinar is, for the moderator, Kristen Steer will be moderating the session. She's from Social Solutions International, Inc. She's a research associate. Myself, the Director of Special Initiatives and Program Planning and Evaluation from HRSA Maternal and Child Health Bureau. And our guest speaker is Jenny Namer-Karp, who is the Senior Vice President of Social Solutions International, Inc. Next slide. The objective of today's webinar is to explain the purpose of evaluation research, introduce types of evaluations, specifically processes or process evaluations and outcome evaluations, and also provide information on the challenges and benefits of program evaluation. Next slide. The goal of the overall toolkit as it relates to assessing your efforts is to introduce simple types of evaluations, how to collect information and feedback, and what to do once information is collected. Also to provide tools and multiple resources to assist you in evaluating your efforts. So at this time, I will turn it over to Jenny from Social Solutions. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Keisha. As Keisha mentioned, we're going to talk a little bit about evaluation today. I'm going to give you an overview of evaluation basics and how it might apply to your programs with some tips and tools for implementation. So I'm going to start off by talking a little bit about why we need to evaluate and what the reasons are that we would undergo such what might be considered a taxing or time-consuming effort. But it's really important that we undergo these efforts so that we can understand the importance of our programs, the outcomes of our programs, and really be able to provide information that is fact-based as opposed to assumptions-based. So too often, as service providers, we rely on our own instincts or our passions to figure out what our customers or our clients need or whether our products or services are providing what they need. And evaluation allows us to really understand and confirm the impact of our program. So the role of evaluation research helps us to determine the bullets on these slides. But program evaluation methods should really be multifaceted, following the principles of ongoing quality improvement, and include both qualitative and quantitative data. So when we're talking about qualitative data, we're talking about descriptive data, and we talk about quantitative data, we talk about numbers. But all evaluation research helps us to improve our accountability, both to our staff and our programs as well as to our funders. It helps us to assess program quality and ensure that we have continuous quality improvement throughout the course of our program implementation. It helps us determine whether or not we're achieving our program goals and how effective we're being. It also allows us to determine whether or not we're being successful and whether or not it makes sense or is useful to duplicate our program or use them in other areas. So here we have a little true-false quiz, and the first question is whether or not evaluation research is about producing boring, scientifically generated data with useless conclusions. Now, while we might think that this is true, it is indeed false. And it's important to note that most recently evaluation is focusing on utility and relevance and making sure that's really practical for not only science, but as well as our funders and our programs and our clients. So really, on the contrary to this statement, it should be designed to answer anything that you need to know. So we can use evaluation to develop and garner data for funders or stakeholders or for our staff. Our second true-false says, evaluation research is about proving the success or failure of a program. Again, this is false, because this would imply that implementing the perfect program means never having to assess or critique its impacts. Rather than implementing evaluation at the end of a program, we encourage the continuous feedback is useful and preferred. So we really encourage people to apply evaluation research throughout the course of programming, really considering it at the beginning prior to implementation as well as throughout the course and at the end of program implementation. Third and finally, evaluation research is very difficult and time-consuming and cannot be done without outside experts. Again, this is false. It's very likely that many of you are already undergoing evaluation research in your programming without realizing it. Part of the goal for today is to help you realize the benefits of evaluation research and how it can be effective in your programs, and what are the really easy ways for you to implement some quick tools and products that can help you evaluate what you're doing. So to help you do that, we've outlined a few specific evaluation questions that are really important to consider when designing your evaluation. And the answers to these questions will inform the type of evaluation that you conduct and the types of data that you will collect. So you'll ask questions like, what are the goals of your program? What are the target outcomes? And what are the steps to achieving those outcomes? You will specifically look at what are the anticipated results of your program, and during and after your program, you'll figure out whether or not those results are truly happening. You'll want to look at who's responsible, or who are the people responsible for the evaluation as well as the program, and what's the time frame. So do you have 6 months to complete your evaluation, or do you have 6 weeks to complete your evaluation? And how will you actually do that implementation process? And speaking of process, we're going to talk a little bit about process evaluation. And process evaluation is exactly what it sounds like. So it's an evaluation that looks at the process by which a program is implemented. Excuse me. A process evaluation documents and analyzes the early development and actual implementation of the strategy or program. And it assesses whether or not the strategies are implemented as plans or whether expected outputs were actually produced. Process evaluation, it includes these 4 primary activities. It really looks at monitoring the implementation process of an evaluation, determining whether the intervention is delivered as planned. So you have a curriculum for 5 sessions. Are we implementing all 5 sessions as they're intended to be implemented? A process evaluation also documents the challenges to a project and the barriers that you encounter. And the point of doing that is to help you learn from those challenges so that they're not duplicated again. And finally, a process evaluation helps you determine whether or not the project is delivering the intervention to the intended target. So are you actually reaching the people you're trying to reach, or are you reaching the people who are convenient and can access the program easily, or those who are interested in the program already? So the elements of a process evaluation are multifaceted, but you would include a description of the program environment and the supplying data. So where is the program being implemented? Who are the people that are involved? It also includes a description of the process used to design and implement the program. So how was the program actually developed? Who was involved in the program development, and who was involved in implementing the program or project? It includes a description of program operations, including changes in the program. So if you encountered a specific challenge during program implementation and that you changed the process by which you implement, it would include a description of that. And also includes identification and description of intervention events that might affect implementation. So did you have a staff person who went out on maternity leave, or did you have a program population that included a number of women who had children and therefore weren't able to come after school because they had to take care of their kids and didn't have daycare. So you want to make sure that you're identifying any of the events that affect program implementation and outcomes. And then you also want to collect documentation, such as meeting notes or program intervention activities, reports, memos, newsletters, curricula, etc. So process evaluation methods traditionally include observations, where an individual might go to a project meeting or a program event. It includes focus groups where you have facilitated discussions with participants and staff regarding their perceptions of the project, whether they thought it was successful, what they liked, what they thought could be improved. It also includes documentation of the number of clients or participants who are actively participating, as well as the background characteristics or demographic characteristics. And it includes documentation of services provided over time. So at the end of your process evaluation, you should be able to answer these questions. Are we able to implement the program as we had planned? What aspects of the program are strong? Which ones could use improvement? What can we do to strengthen our program? And how can we improve program efficiency? One of the things that is really exciting about a process evaluation is that it allows you to look at any unexpected effects. So in the course of this thorough documentation, you're often able to see unplanned successful effects as well as unplanned effects that you may not want to have promoted. So it's a really great aspect of process evaluation. And then you can also look at the problems or challenges that arise so that you can learn from those challenges and change them. So as we discussed previously, the benefits of process evaluation are similar to overall evaluation, but again, it provides accountability internally and externally to your funders and clients. It helps you to better understand the day-to-day function of your program, how your staff work, how your program works, how it's really implementing and affecting your clients. You're able to look at program development improvement, and it allows you to figure out whether or not you want to set up similar services internally or externally to your organization. So what are the really great aspects of your program, and what are the ones that you maybe wouldn't recommend for other individuals? And with that, we're going to talk a little bit about outcome evaluation. Outcome evaluation tells us what happens as a result of what you did. So it tells us what happens as a result of the program that we've implemented. So it helps us to determine the effects of participation in the project on participants. So what exactly are the outcomes? It helps us to determine the factors related to favorable and unfavorable outcomes. So why is it that we had these positive or negative outcomes? It helps us to determine the relationship between dose and response. So it tells us how an amount of time in the program relates to the outcomes that are observed. So as an example of this, I just wanted to share about an outcome evaluation that we did internally, which was part of a program where we implemented a training and education campaign to educate students on college campuses about intimate partner violence and the resources that were available to them on the campus. And when we were looking at the outcomes, we looked at the effects of the training on the participants. So did the training actually increase knowledge? Did it change behaviors? And we looked at what actually affected those outcomes. Was it, particularly at dose, was it the amount of time or the number of trainings that individuals participated in that made a difference, or was it that one session really made a difference and that helped them spur and create change? So that's an example of the kinds of things that we're looking at with outcome evaluation. So outcomes are really defined as impacts on the end user, and those impacts can be seen in a variety of ways. They can be seen as changes in behavior, changes in attitude, skills, knowledge, or a condition or status. So the next slide really shows you the continuum of these outcomes. And if you look at the bottom, you'll note that these are the outcomes that are the easiest to change. So awareness of a service, as you can imagine, is an easy thing to change. Once you put up flyers or you do a training, you can easily make people aware that you have a program. perceptions and feelings, attitudes and values, those are things that can more easily change over time. But as you get to the top, you'll note that skills and behaviors are things that take a repeated exposure to a program to really create change. So if your program is to increase knowledge about intimate partner violence and perinatal depression, it will be easier for you to raise awareness of the intersection of these issues than it is going to be to change the behaviors of individuals in seeking care and treatment. So as we talked about with process evaluation, sample outcome evaluation methods include the following. They might include self-assessment of participants or trainers, participant demonstration of knowledge or skills, questionnaires, surveys of participants and trainers, interviews, focus groups, and assessment of products developed. So you're really going to be looking at change over time in an outcome evaluation. So with a participant demonstration of knowledge or skills, you would probably be looking at a pre and a post questionnaire or survey. So prior to participation in your program, what was the participant level of knowledge? And then I think you would do that again at the end of the program to assess what the changes were in the knowledge or skills or motivations of the participants. We can answer any number of program questions with an outcome evaluation. What did you do? Who did you do it to? Or who did you do it with? How many people did you serve? What did they get or not get? What effect did it have on their attitudes and behavior? Can other programs use this information? How does this information influence other programs? And were there any unexpected difficulties? So answers to these questions not only help to improve your existing programs, but future programs. And the lessons learned can help to ensure that challenges aren't repeated, but your successes are. Feedback from evaluation can be used to refine project interventions, improve organizations, and delivery of services. Outcome evaluation data can be useful as a planning tool, requiring a needs assessment. It can clarify the purpose of your program or service. It helps to keep staff and stakeholders focused on ultimate goals and keeps them motivated. If you see the success of your program, if you're having a positive impact on your clients or participants, then it's really going to keep your staff and stakeholders motivated and focused. It stimulates discussion of issues. So as you are implementing evaluation, and if an issue or a challenge arises, it encourages staff to discuss those issues rather than ignoring them and moving on. Evaluation helps to keep implementation on track as milestones are tracked and indicates when changes are needed. It's not necessarily about proving a failure of a particular implementation aspect. It's about indicating whether or not you need to make a change to make a better and more positive influence. It energizes staff by demonstrating real and human improvement, human impact of their work, as we discussed. Very motivating. And it enhances program staff knowledge and understanding of how to interpret data. So in addition to all of the very specific program benefits of outcome evaluation, it also has staff benefits. So by involving evaluation in your programming and in your organization, you can start to build staff knowledge and skills as a continuing education kind of benefit for your staff. Outcome evaluation also gives us insight into why and how programs are being used, and assists in fundraising and grant writing by providing statistics on results. So one of the many reasons that people engage in evaluation is so that they have some concrete data that they can include in proposals to receive increased funding for their programming. And while it's not necessarily the primary reason for evaluation, it's certainly a nice secondary result of evaluation. It can provide empirical evidence as to what you're doing and making sure it's what you intended to do. And it quantifies anecdotes and success stories. So it's very easy to have a story from a participant or a woman talking about the importance and value of participating in one of your programs. But by conducting outcome evaluation, it allows you to have quantifiable data based on numbers that you can then show to funders, programmers, staff, etc., that really quantifies that and puts a real value on the success of your program. It allows you to identify effective programming and services, and it allows you to focus on what's most successful to improve on those successes, as well as what's not so successful. It also demonstrates the ways that your program and organization is contributing to solving community and individual problems. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about designing an evaluation. And the design of an evaluation could be as complicated or as simple as the reasons that you're undergoing the evaluation. So you may be undergoing the evaluation just to answer one question, or you may be undergoing the evaluation to answer a series of questions. And the reason for which you're undergoing the evaluation will be what drives your evaluation design. So there are a number of questions to consider in designing your evaluation. And your evaluation plan will depend on what information it is that you need to collect. So for example, if you want to know more about what's going on in your programs, whether or not your programs are meeting their goals, you might collect one kind of data. If you're looking at providing something very specific for a funder, you might collect something else. So you're going to ask these questions. For what purposes is your evaluation being completed? Who are the audiences for whom the evaluation is being completed? So are you completing it, again, for your boss or your supervisor, or are you completing it for your board, or are you completing it for a funder? What kinds of information are needed to make the decisions that you need to make? What are the sources that should be used for information collection? How can the information collected be done so in a reasonable fashion? So how can you do it in a way that is the most cognizant of time constraints as well as cost constraints? You need to think about when your information is needed and what resources are available for collecting the information. So in terms of data collection, you need to remember that all data collection is going to be project specific. And again, it will depend on your design and your goals for your evaluation. So some of the things that you might consider would be background information on your participants as well as your staff and program implementers. So what are the demographics of the individuals involved? What is their education, their employment, their residential status, etc. You might want to look at family and social support issues, health status, a criminal behavior history, history of trauma and violence or depression. Any of these things might be relevant to your program, but it's going to be very program specific. So as you may have been thinking throughout the course of the presentation, there are a number of challenges that can be encountered when conducting evaluation. And the one that we hear most often is that it just seems too hard and that there's not enough time to actually do what's required. And while these may seem reasonable and challenging, we really encourage people to just think about evaluation from the get-go. And if you think about evaluation planning as in line with your program implementation or as program planning, it really enables the challenge to be decreased because it's an ongoing, continual process, and it's not one big thing that has to happen at the end as opposed to sort of little things that happen throughout the course of your project. So challenges that are encountered are exactly that. When you implement evaluation at the end of a program rather than integrating it throughout the course of the project. Other challenges might include lack of communication or misunderstandings between the project and evaluation. So oftentimes program staff feel that an evaluation is being conducted to show what they're doing wrong or what's not working, whereas the true goal of an evaluation is to show what's not working but also what is working. Evaluation requirements are often viewed as intrusive or burdensome by project staff. Again, this comes down to time and sometimes money. So do staff have the time to either do the evaluation activities themselves, or do they have the time to interface with the external evaluators? Do they have time to collect all the data, provide it, etc.? And there's the fear, as I mentioned before, of being graded or judged as performing poorly by evaluators. So these are all some of the challenges that you encounter throughout the course of project evaluation. but it's important to think about it as not so scientific and not so challenging, in that if the first 20% of your effort really generates 80% of your program planning. And a little bit of evaluation is better than no evaluation at all. So in conclusion, regarding some of the specific design elements, we've talked about the importance of evaluation planning and the effort that you put into your programs and the planning of your evaluation should be done as early as possible and serves an ultimate goal of effective programming and helping your clients as best as possible. It's a continuing process. Evaluation, again, isn't something that should be completed at the end of a program, but something that should be completed throughout the process. And any time that you dedicate to program evaluation will be repaid in improved programming and improved communities and health and well-being of the individuals that you serve. And in conclusion, I want to chat a little bit about creating a culture of evaluation within your organization. Creating a culture of evaluation helps to ensure the buy-in and success of any evaluation activity. And an ideal culture of evaluation encompasses several values, but most importantly is considered to be an inclusive and non-hierarchical process so that everyone within your organization is involved in the evaluation, and that helps to encourage buy-in and encourage or not encourage the sense that you're being judged or graded. In order to create a culture of evaluation, you should make the concept of evaluation teaching-oriented so that it can be understood by both your most senior scientific staff as well as your program implementers, educators, case managers, etc. And it should be action-oriented and seeking to solve problems. Cultures of evaluation are also self-critical in that they recognize their limitations. So in a culture of evaluation in our organization, we recognize not only the challenges with evaluation itself, but the limitations of our staff and when we need to include outside resources and when we don't. Evaluation should be interdisciplinary. Multidisciplinary research groups are very beneficial. So again, you want to include caseworkers, educators, administrative and senior staff in the whole concept of evaluation within your organization, and really embracing the idea that evaluation is open and democratic and that data as well as evaluation activities should be open and accessible to all. So in fostering a culture of evaluation, you foster a culture of continuous improvement, which allows us all to do a little bit better and improve the health and well-being of our target population. We've included a few links to well-recognized evaluation sites to assist you in your evaluation endeavors. Alternatively, you can always reach out to us at Social Solutions or to Keisha Highsmith. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Kristen Steele, who's going to talk a little bit about specific evaluation activities within the toolkit itself.
Great, thank you, Jenny. As Dr. Highsmith discussed in the beginning, Social Solutions has developed a toolkit for community-based organizations to address intimate partner violence and perinatal depression, entitled A Comprehensive Approach for Community-Based Programs to Address the Intersection of Intimate Partner Violence and Perinatal Depression. So I'm going to take just a few minutes to briefly discuss the components in the section entitled Evaluation of Your Efforts. And this section of the toolkit kind of combines a few of the basic information that Jenny just went over regarding evaluation, and then also some specifics for how your organization might be able to evaluate their efforts, specifically concerning intimate partner violence and perinatal depression initiatives. So this section of the toolkit highlights how evaluation can take many different forms, and they can be performed for many different reasons. You might want to assess how well your current initiative is already working. You want to gather some feedback from the community or from staff or participants. You want to gather data and information to share with members of your community and even potential funders. An evaluation can also be used to define what success really looks like for your community and how your initiative specifically is meeting these goals or can meet them in the future. So why is evaluation important, in particular for your organization? As Jenny highlighted previously, this can assist you in securing money or other types of resources for your initiative. It doesn't just have to be money-oriented. You could gain support or backing from other initiatives in your community, from administrators in your community, politicians, legislators, anyone who's interested in improving this issue in your community. And evaluations can also help you determine ways to improve the effectiveness of your initiative. And it kind of can provide a mechanism for overcoming any resistance that there might already be for intimate partner violence and perinatal depression. So how does evaluation help you achieve these things, and what does it look like? The toolkit lists several different types of evaluations you could employ, and it is by no means an exhaustive list, but a couple of examples here would be a telephone survey that helps you measure community opinion about the particular initiative you've implemented. It could be a paper and pencil survey that's passed out to community members by mail, and it asks them to rate your initiative goals. How feasible are these goals, and how important are they to the community? This could also be an idea for a phone survey. You could also do a paper and pencil survey of members of your organization to understand their satisfaction with the leadership, community involvement, and the planning of your community-based initiative. Another example includes a behavioral survey, which assesses one's knowledge, attitudes, or behaviors in relation to your goal. So a paper and pencil survey here could be distributed annually to your target population. So for example, you might want to survey women who utilize your intimate partner violence or perinatal depression services to gauge their knowledge, attitude, and behaviors. You could also conduct interviews with key participants using one-on-one interviews, or even a semi-structured focus group interview style can really clarify important events in the life of your initiative and illustrate the value that the initiative has added to your community. You could also conduct a survey of outcomes, perhaps a pencil and paper survey that specifically asks community members to rate the significance of the changes or outcomes that have been a result of your initiative. And lastly, the toolkit highlights goal attainment reports, which help identify progress made towards the proposed changes identified in your initiative's action plan. Or you could use an online documentation system which gathers information about the daily activities of your initiative and is a really detailed way of keeping track and evaluating multiple items and activities. And you could use community-level indicators. So by highlighting local, state, or regional information, you're using statistics about rates of IPV or PD in your state or region that are already available, and this helps you track any changes that have occurred in your community in particular over the years, and it can be a really important tool to demonstrate how your initiative fits in with these indicators already available to you. So all of the aforementioned evaluation tools can be used to answer many different kinds of questions for your organization by defining goals, successes, and challenges, and fostering support among other organization and community members. But the toolkit also provides a tool to help you evaluate, aside from those that we've already mentioned. The post-assessment tool asks organizations to consider questions, such as those listed here, about every section of the toolkit. So these questions aim to get organizations thinking about their implementation of the strategies listed throughout this entire guide. The questions mirror those that are asked in the pre-assessment portion of the toolkit, and it really measures how far you've come in your efforts to address IPV and PD. And these are just a few of the questions included in the full toolkit. So have there been improvements in awareness towards these issues? Is IPD-PD maybe a part of training for your staff now at your organization? Are there new guidelines and procedures in place for referring clients to other organizations when they're experiencing IPD and PD? Are your staff routinely referring participants to the appropriate services? And has your organization been able to build a referral or partnership network? Has your organization enhanced the physical environment of the clinic or office by having culturally competent posters or brochures or other awareness materials available to clients? So overall, the goal of this section of the toolkit is to allow readers to better address IPV and PD in their communities. And there are many different ways of doing that, as we've highlighted here. So you may always contact Social Solutions if you have particular questions about evaluation. And of course, if you have questions or comments you'd like additional information for the State and Community Intimate Partner Violence and Perinatal Depression Resource Development Project, please do contact Dr. Keisha Highsmith. So with that, I'd like to thank Jenny for her presentation and Dr. Highsmith for her moderation. Thank you.